Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Tyler here, and today I'm going to guide you through installing Svelte and getting started with some basic styling, components, importing components, and adding dynamic text. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, the first thing we're going to want to do is head on over to a terminal, wherever you want to follow along with this project series, and we are going to type in npx digit, and then Svelte JS, all one word, /templates. And then we can hit space and then give it our template name. I'm going to call it Svelte tutorial. Okay, so I'm just installing this on my desktop, and once it's installed, we can cd into Svelte tutorial. SVE, oh, I spelled it wrong. SVLET. There we go. And once we're in here, what we can do is we can ls and see our project structure. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to type in Npm Install to install all the dependencies and such. And once this is installed, I'm going to open this up with Visual Studio Code by typing code dot in my terminal. And now we have our project in Visual Studio Code. One thing I'm going to quickly end off right here is this scripts folder. If you want to convert this to TypeScript, which will basically change this main.js file into a TypeScript file and add a couple dependencies for TypeScript support, all you have to do, for example, is do node /scripts /setup.js, and it'll actually convert it to TypeScript. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. You don't have to convert to TypeScript to follow along with this tutorial, but I like using TypeScript, and it won't really change much. So I'm going to do that, and what you'll see is that folder goes away. Now it tells you you will need to rerun your dependency manager, and what that means is just reinstall npm all the packages. So now that we have this done, we can actually start up our development server. So to do that, we're going to run npm run dev. And what that'll do is start up in development mode, and whenever we restart our application or anything like that, it'll recompile our TypeScript. And if you see and open this on localhost 5000, we get our hello world application, and the Svelte documentation are linked right here. So now that we have this out of the way, for the rest of the video, I'm going to demonstrate three main things: how to create components, how to style them, and how to add some dynamic text. So let's get started. Inside of the main.ts file, I'm just going to get rid of this props object. And if you're wondering where this is being used, inside the app.svelte, you can see how we're saying hello, and then this bracket notation, which is basically just saying take the value name, which you can see up here is a string, and that is coming from here, name. So we're just passing the props from the global scope. So it says hello and world. So I'm going to just get rid of this, and what you'll see is when I delete that, we get hello undefined because our name is no longer getting passed in. So that is what I'm going to do. What I'm actually going to do is delete every single thing in this file and start from scratch, and what you'll see is it shows in the UI. Okay, so Svelte is separated by three main file structures. We have a script, which is typically at the top. Up here, if you're using TypeScript, make sure to type in lang and then ts. If you're using JavaScript, you do not have to type this. This is just for TypeScript apps for Svelte. Okay, so now that we have that, in here we can type in normal JavaScript. For example, I could say const name is equal to Tyler and hit semicolon, and it works just as you would expect. Down here, we can have our HTML content. For example, I can put an h1 that has hello, my name is, and then to actually put the name value inside of here, we use those quotation brackets. So we do name inside of these brackets, and that'll actually render the content of here inside of there. And if you go back to Chrome, we see hello, my name is Tyler. Perfect. Now let's say we want to style this and actually add some CSS. And this is where the third part of a Svelte application comes in, the styles. So you can see we have the HTML, this whole area, we have the scripts, and we have the styles down here. And one interesting about Svelte is we can do something like h1 and say color of red, for example. And right now, when we go back to Chrome, you'll see this is red, just as we would expect. But if we were to create a secondary component inside that also had an h1, it wouldn't affect it. And to prove it, let me show you. So you may be wondering, okay, how do we create a component? Well, I'm going to come up here inside the source and do secondary.svelte. So you can see all Svelte components end in a .svelte extension. And what we can do in here is just say h1 and say this is a secondary component. And so I'm going to get rid of that S. There we go. And what you'll see is nothing happens inside of the HTML, but it's because we haven't imported this component. So let's do that. Underneath name, if we wanted to import this secondary component, all we would have to do up here is type imports secondary and then do from /secondary.svelte. And in here we have our secondary component. And all we had to do to use this is do bracket secondary, right? And then close bracket. And when we do this, you can see that this will now render. We might actually be getting here. Not. We might want to make this a capital, just to make sure. And then change the spelling to also be a capital. I think TypeScript's having a hard time picking it up. There we go. Yep. So there we go. We have this is a secondary component. And what's even more interesting is that you know how the h1 tag we had before, how we colored it red, the h1 tag in here is not being affected by this. And the reason that is Svelte has local styling. What that means is the style tags will only affect elements on this page. And since this is its own component, it can have its own style tags. And we can do something like h1 and then color of blue, let's say. And when we start, this is what we get. So in the next video, we're going to be covering a whole bunch of other stuff like more to do with imports, props, how do we pass data on to our props, how do we handle click events, and I'll show you a basic timer so we can kind of get all the fundamentals down. If you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.